All right, looking ahead to tomorrow, elected leaders in the business community in Dunkirk will be meeting for a so-called Nuclear 101 informational session. Several representatives from the nuclear industry will be discussing the potential of the old NRG plant along the Lake Erie shore being converted to a nuclear power plant. 2 Side's Nate Benson has been following that story for us tonight. He has the latest on it. Hello, Nate.
Yeah, good evening, Scott. The meeting isn't open to the public, but it's instead meant for elected leaders and the business community to learn about the pros and cons of nuclear power. As the sun sets on a hot June night behind the shuttered former NRG plant along the Lake Erie shoreline in Dunkirk, it's been a little more than a year since Governor Hochul went with the nuclear option, so to speak, and publicly directed the New York Power Authority to explore the expansion of nuclear energy in the Empire State.
Solar works when the sun is shining. Wind turbines spin when the air is moving. We need electricity that's reliable all day long, regardless of the weather outdoors.
On June 11th, the Public Service Commission released what it's calling a nuclear reliability backbone, outlining a goal of 4 gigawatts of nuclear projects on top of the 1 gigawatts of nuclear power announced by the governor last year, which would be added to the existing network of nuclear power plants for a total of 8.4 gigawatts of nuclear backbone in New York if it all plays out. That's the equivalent of 7 bolts of lightning Doc Brown would have needed to harness to send Marty back to the future. But I digress. In the year since the governor's announcement, there hasn't been substantial movement about where a new nuclear facility could end up being, aside from an announcement in January that Dunkirk is on a list of communities that have expressed interest. New York State Senator George Borrello is now assembling a team of local officials and business leaders to get up to speed on all things nuclear so that the community is informed if their input is needed by the state.
If we're going to push towards a zero-emission future, nuclear power is really the only proven power, that baseload power, that can actually power New York's future.
Tuesday's meeting is not open to the public and will focus on the pros and cons of nuclear power.
You know, we want to give people the opportunity to listen, ask some questions. We've limited this to elected officials and business owners and the business stakeholders in the area, because we think that they're the ones that are going to need to answer the questions first before we as we move forward with this.
There's been no significant news about whether or not Dunkirk and the former NRG plant would be a viable nuclear facility, and ultimately it's up to the federal government to approve a plan for a nuclear power plant, not New York State. While Senator Borrello welcomes the governor's support for nuclear energy, he still maintains that the NRG facility could be up and running quicker if it was a natural gas power plant. And Borrello says getting a nuclear plant operational would take at least 10 years after the green light is given.
If she had come to this realization about New York's energy policy 5 years ago, we'd be halfway there, right? So, but at this point, we've got to start somewhere, and it starts with educating people.
Now, once again, tomorrow's meeting is not open to the public. However, Senator Borrello says that future information sessions about nuclear power will be held for the general public. On your side, Nate Benson, Channel 2 News.
Nate, thank you.